I'd like to welcome all of you to our April Members Matter meeting. This is a very exciting project this morning as we welcome colleagues from Eastern Illinois University and the Charleston Public Library. From Eastern Illinois University, we have Zach Newell, Dean of Library Services, who is joined by his colleagues Stacy Knight Davis and Beth Hildebrand. And from the Charleston Carnegie Library, we have the director, Chris Houchens. They're going to talk about the broadband grant that they received from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Development, their Office of Broadband. The grant included many community partners in preparing organizations in the community and individuals to gain capacity and skills to be ready for broadband and other improved 21st century technologies. So with that, because our time is limited this morning and we want to make sure you hear from everyone and are able to ask questions of everyone participating, I'm going to turn it over to Zach Newell, who will start with an overview of the project. Zach?
Thanks, and I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation to be here. And thanks to my colleagues, Stacy Knight Davis and Beth Hildebrand, and to our community partner, Chris Houchins. I'll give you some background as to how we got involved in this, which is, even though we're a university or academic library, we're very community minded, and we've been writing or pursuing some grants to work with the community, especially with train-the-trainer programs with teachers in the Charleston school district. And this was really building off of an opportunity we took advantage of at the beginning of the pandemic, when we explored some governor's emergency education relief fund opportunities, both with some money immediately for our campus to build retention for our underrepresented student population, defined as first generation Pell eligible BIPOC, in purchasing laptops for checkout. And then we purchased some webcams, some MiFi hotspots, and some audio equipment, including some cameras. We also got a separate grant through GEAR or the state of Illinois, so that we could run an instructional studio that was an extension of what we offered in the library in the dorms. So we were already thinking about ways we could serve the immediate community, but how could we extend that into the larger community? And there was an opportunity through the Broadband Ready grant, which is under the umbrella of the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, which we have sort of a satellite organization or presence on our campus. And they were encouraging us to build out what we were doing through the technology that we had, and sort of doing some more work in terms of skills, workforce development, or skills training or skills development for students, and to look into the outside community. So in attending some of these presentations with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity and the Illinois Innovation Network, we saw a call for this Broadband Ready grant. And we thought that what better way to get involved is not necessarily with connectedness, but thinking about technology. What are our students' needs? What's the community needs in running a digital literacy program? And we felt like that was our bread and butter. And the way we had approached it was we wanted to identify community partners. So we identified public libraries in the area and the region, the Charleston Carnegie Public Library, chief among those partners. We partnered with a community college, with the Mattoon School District, and other public libraries in the area. And what we did was we hired a digital literacy coordinator, somebody who could scale a curriculum, make it sort of modular, so that we ran workshops in our library. What we have is an innovation space. And it's an active learning classroom. And attached to the active learning classroom is technology, so that we're starting to do a lot of work with these classes around technology. And this digital literacy coordinator, who's a graduate student from EIU, he's recently graduated, created this curriculum and worked very closely with Stacy and Beth. And I'll turn it over to them to give more about how this Train the Trainer program worked, how we worked with our partners, how we engaged them, how we engaged the community, and how long the program ran. Stacy, Beth, do you mind jumping in?
Well, we were very lucky to hire a very talented master's student that actually built the training for this program. He had a lot of interest in digital citizenship and media literacy, and brought that background with him in building a program that really went beyond just what's a web browser and how do I check my email, down to important things about privacy and how your life is displayed to others on the internet, thinking about your online persona, that sort of thing. So our staff member, Nate, for the grant, he built several trainings based on interviews that he had done with the libraries that were participating in the program, to try to custom tailor what he was teaching to what the local needs were. And I think this is the key thing, is making sure that the training actually fits what the local needs are. And then this, of course, was before the big COVID flare-up we had earlier this year. So we were still able to meet in person and deliver that training in a small group and have some good discussions about the content. And then participants could go home, share in their home libraries, and then reproduce that training locally.
I'll add that once Nate met with all of our public library partners, when the library originally thought about what this program might look like, we were thinking from perhaps an academic library's perspective, and a lot more, bibliographic sessions and research help and things like that. And we figured out pretty quickly in our conversations with our public library partners and Lakeland College, who use this program in their GED classes, that what their patrons really needed is something more basic in terms of social media use, basic technology questions, privacy and security, as Stacy mentioned. So we scaled back and really changed our curriculum quite a bit. Nate, after meeting originally with all of our partners, unfortunately, Nate was a grant-funded position and he's no longer with us. So we'll do our best to describe all the hard work that he did. He spent some time down in our Center for Student Innovation that Zach described earlier, creating this curriculum. And last summer, our public library and community college partners, and also our Academy of Lifelong Learning here on campus, sent people throughout the summer to be trained in these various topics. In the chat in a little bit, I can put a link to the LibGuide that Nate created. So you can see all of the curriculum that he put together. And at the end, he even went back and recorded all of those training sessions so that our partners would have that to continue to use. After the summer, and our public library and community college partners came and did their training, they went back to, as Stacy said, went back to their communities and scheduled their own workshops for their own patrons. And as Zach noted, we wanted to do the train the trainer model because, this is a grant funded program. We knew in December, Nate wasn't going to be here anymore. We weren't going to have the funding to continue this program, but we didn't want this information sharing in these workshops to stop just because our grant funding ran out. So by training the trainer, we hoped that our public library partners would take this information back and continue to offer workshops to their patrons, beyond December. And as far as I know, I'll let our public library partners weigh in, but we've heard from several of them that they did continue to offer these workshops throughout this past spring and hopefully beyond. As part of our grant money, we did ask for funding to give a stipend to each of our public library partners because we understood that, they're mostly small staffs, and for them to take on this these extra workshops, they may need money for publicity or for, to hire someone to undergo this training and present these workshops and things like that. So we were able to give them each a small stipend in the $1,000 to $2,000 range to each, just to help recover some of the costs that it was going to take for them to participate in our program. So we thought that was pretty important too. I will find the link to that LibGuide and put it in the chat for anyone who would like to see the materials that Nate put together in a LibGuide.
Chris, maybe you could pipe in with some of your perspective as a partner on the project. I mean, there was an ask. Nate, who was our digital literacy coordinator, tried to make the curriculum as modular as possible, realizing that it wasn't a one size fits all. And so you as a community partner attended some of the workshops that he conducted through our innovative space in the library, but maybe you could speak to how that worked and how you were able to take away what he was doing in terms of how it would fit into your library and your patrons.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of we got involved when Beth and Zach and Stacy kind of approached us about, hey, we're thinking about doing this train the trainer with digital literacy. And the idea of that sounded great because, as I'm sure most of you all know, public need of technology access and digital literacy, we've seen a lot over the last few years, especially heightened from the pandemic, of patrons coming in needing to use a computer and having no idea how to use a computer. Suddenly they're filing unemployment or a job application or whatever it is they need to use a computer for, and they don't know how to use a mouse. They don't know how to open a web browser, let alone use the web browser. So the idea of getting a bit more of a formalized training for staff, for myself, to help our community was really enticing. And I'll say, Nate was phenomenal from our side because I had several meetings with Nate where he would come in and we would discuss the library, the patrons that we're seeing, what needs we're seeing, and he basically made a list. I know he did with all the partners, and just kind of figured out, when we say computer basics, we mean literally what's the difference between a left click and the right click on the mouse, to what does it mean to be on social media, to take it from, Nate had a really interesting, I really appreciated his perspective, taking it from the digital literacy side to get us to the digital citizenship side, to understand what it means to be on the internet, to be on social media. That was one of the key takeaways I remember from one of his sessions we were discussing. It was regarding parenting and parents and their children's in technology, as far as when a digital footprint starts. And most kids these days, their digital footprint starts before they're born with a picture of their ultrasound. And that's the first start of that digital footprint for that kid. And I was like, I didn't think about that, but it is the start of that digital footprint. So I was really appreciated Nate's perspective. And I'll say those sessions were usually 2 to 3 hours. I think he put on 4 of them, and they were engaging the entire time. He really put together some great stuff. So if he recorded them, I'll go rewatch those recordings, just because there's going to be something new I'll take away from him, because he was an expert in this, it felt like. And those trainings, I brought myself and then 2 other staff members to those trainings so we could all get that perspective. And we were able to, over that summer, take all these train the trainer programs, and we built a series of technology workshops. So throughout, I think it was October, November last fall, we put on 15 different workshops regarding computer basics, social media, and internet basics and basic internet security. And those were really well attended, but we also knew, discussing with Nate and knowing our community and knowing our patrons, that workshops don't always work for everybody, especially when it comes to technology. I'm sure a lot of you are used to a patron comes in, they need computer help, and they're instantly angry that they have to use a computer. So we also offered the ability to schedule one-on-one sessions with one of the 3 of us who had gone through this train the trainer program, where we would work with the patron and our schedule to find a time that would work for everybody. And we have had several of those one-on-one sessions where they bring in their own computer, or they bring in a phone or their e-reader, or they just bring a list of questions, and we use one of our own computers in-house to help them figure out what it is they're trying to figure out, because everyone is at a different level. Everyone has a different need. Everyone has a different question. And we've continued that this spring. We've continued our technology workshop series. We've continued to offer one-on-ones that we continue to have them get scheduled. We're planning some for the summer. We're going to continue this, basically using the skills that we've been able to get from these train the trainers to basically turn it into a semester-based series of programs that at least once a month, if not more, we will have some sort of technology workshop series. Maybe it is the very computer basics, or maybe it's something new. You know, we're putting together ones on Gmail. We're putting together ones to use the e-collections that we have access to help our community access that. It's just listening to our community and using the skills that we got and the things that we discussed in those train the trainers to build this out a bit. And it's been going really well. And you know, there's workshops where no one attends, but that's programming in a public library. You're always going to have that. But we're always really happy, and the feedback has been really good from the community members. You know, we have one of my staff members who's done all this training, and he's kind of been the lead of building these workshops for us, is becoming quite popular in our community. People come in and say, oh, is Daniel in? Is Daniel available? Because they want to work with him. They've had an experience with him, and he's become a trusted source of information of when it comes to helping someone navigate their technology needs. But it's been great, and those train the trainer programs were really beneficial to give us that tool set to kind of develop these in a little more formalized way. We've always offered technology help and helped our patrons with technology, but this gave us a little bit more of a formalized perspective and gave us some questions to really think about of why we're doing it and how we're going to go doing it moving forward. It's been really beneficial to be able to partner with Booth and be able to attend those programs with where the other partners would show up, because, you know, whether it be with Lakeland, who's working through their GED program, or the Mattoon School District, we all have the same kind of goals, but we all have different patrons and different clientele, and getting to see those perspectives was really helpful as well, to know, like, oh, you're dealing with the same basic thing we're dealing with. You're just dealing with a 12-year-old and we have an 80-year-old, but it's still the basic kind of questions, but we handle them very differently. So it was really nice to be able to have that opportunity to meet everybody and have those chances to talk about all the different things that we're having.
I might note that Carl from the Mattoon Public Library is with us also, so I don't know if he has anything that he wants to add to that.
I think Chris covered it pretty well. I mean, we offered the group sessions. Sometimes it ended up more one-on-one. I think almost every public library has people who need help navigating an unemployment form or some sort of a digital form on usually multiple times a week. And so this is all very helpful in that way. I think as we go forward, we may incorporate it into some of our other programs. We have a family literacy program and a family strategies or parenting curriculum. And so digital literacy is part of all of that. And so the idea of tailoring it to your community, I think, is a good message, because it's not, some of the things you'll find are going to be in most, if not all, communities, but there also will be things that might apply in one place and not another. So, but the overall information or scope, you know, is useful, and then you can apply it where it works for you.
And we have a question in the chat from Sandy West, and Sandy West is at an academic library, but she said, when doing one-on-one sessions, do you use your IT department, or do you have your library staffed comfortably enough with technology to provide the assistance?
I'll start. Oh, I was going to say, I'll start by saying neither. We don't really have an IT department that helps with the one-on-one sessions, and maybe our staff aren't entirely comfortable doing those, but they make a best effort on doing it. And I think thinking about that is why we had asked for money, so that we could give a small sum of money to each of our community partners so that they could hire somebody if need be to offer some of that training on site. So we were thinking about at least to offset the cost if they wanted to hire somebody part-time who maybe was more qualified to conduct the workshops and do a little one-on-one work after the workshops, but it still didn't solve the long-term problem of how do you deal with those one-on-one encounters on a daily basis. So, and it was kind of, the workshops were orienting people to be more comfortable working in that environment anyway.
Yeah, I'll also, we don't have an IT department. I'm our IT department as best that I can be. So it's kind of, if you're on the desk that's overseeing the adult computers, or you're at the kids' desk with the kids' computers, at any point you're going to be asked a point of a question regarding a computer or technology help, and it's kind of a requirement of staff. You need to have some level of comfortable. You have to be a little comfortable with being able to help someone with a computer. You don't have to know all the ins and outs and all the technical stuff, but to be able to help patrons is what we do every day. That's kind of what we're here for. So everybody on staff has some level of training, and this Train the Trainer has helped us just formalize that and trying to have a little bit more comfortable, especially with the adult computers, because those are usually the ones where, maybe it's an angry patron just because they have to touch a mouse that they're angry, or they're coming in and they have something else really important going on in their life. Our location here in Charleston, we are right by some recovery facilities. We're right by the county courthouse. We're right by the county jail. And we get individuals from all three of those places that they get sent to us when they need something. So it might be someone sent over directly from the courthouse and they need a court document right now. So we do our best, but it's just a general expectation on staff that at any point, if you're in a public facing desk, or if you're just walking the floor, you need to be ready for that reference question or the technology question, because that's what the public is going to expect from you. And I'll add, sometimes the answer to that is, I don't know. Let me go find someone that can answer that for you.
We're the same. We use our library staff. And we get multiple questions, but it's a staff function.
You've mentioned that Lakeland College has been a partner of yours, and that they're work on this project, and they're working with their GED program on this. Can you talk a little bit about how the school district has been a partner and what they've taken on with this?
Do you mean the Mattoon School District or
Yeah.
Lakeland College? Okay, yeah. Yeah, the Mattoon School District, Nate was able to go into the schools in the fall. So he did the public library and Lakeland College training over the summer. And then when classes started again in the fall, the Mattoon School District has a student leader program. I can't think of what it's called. But basically at the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level, they have student leaders who were previously chosen. And they invited Nate into the schools over a couple of day period where he presented his digital literacy curriculum to the student leaders. And then the student leaders were going to go out and share it with the other students their age. So Nate took the curriculum that he created over the summer, which was for adults, and made pretty much 3 different levels of that, from the elementary perspective, a middle school perspective, and a high school perspective. The high school perspective, I think, is pretty similar to the adult, but from all accounts, from what we heard from our Mattoon School District partners, he did a great job of meeting with the students. They all got together in one room, and he presented examples, that made sense to them based on their age level and things like that. So we were really glad that we were able to partner in that way. And to Carl's note earlier about making sure that your curriculum meets the needs of your patrons. Early on, we found out from the Mattoon Library and through the Mattoon School District that, the year before, when all the classes went online, the Mattoon School District used the Google Suite, and all of the parents suddenly had to know the Google Suite in order to help their kids to do their online classes. And a lot of the parents, didn't have a lot of experience with that. So that was one of the reasons why Nate added some G Suite training materials specifically, and this may have applied to other public libraries too, but specifically Mattoon mentioned that they were getting a lot of questions at their library from parents who were trying to help their kids who suddenly were doing remote learning. And so all of that kind of came together over the summer with the G Suite, and then transferring that over when he put together the curriculum for the younger students.
Thank you. That's a huge help. I know that we're going to lose Zach, and we lost Zach. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is, what lessons did you learn from this project? And as well as what lessons you've learned, what surprised you about doing the project? I mean, certainly the G Suite is a great example. And I can say that as somebody who's had to learn it on the fly. But what have you learned from this project and what surprised you? Anybody can take that and we'll go around the room.
I'll lead off on this one. It's a bit of a combination. I would say, we're all used to helping someone with a computer. Oh, access this, access that. Here's how you do it. But to slow down and treat those who need technology help with like a reference interview. What is it you're actually trying to do? Why are you trying to learn? You're trying to get into an email. Why are you trying to get into an email? Maybe it's a one-off thing. Maybe it's something you're going to have to repeatedly do. Maybe it's better if we take a little time and set you up with a one-on-one. So we can actually teach you how to do this thing rather than you come in every other day and just ask us the same question. Let's take the time. But then sometimes I had a really interesting one-on-one where it was a woman, her husband had passed away and he had done all the technology stuff for their house, and just sitting down with her, trying to show her like, this is how you use the computer, this is how you access the internet, and just talking with her more and doing this kind of almost like a technology reference interview. Very quickly learned that the answer to her question is to not use the computer. She didn't want the internet. She didn't want the computer. She felt like she needed it. She felt pressured to need to be on the computer, to be on the internet, to have Facebook, to have an email. And that's like, why would you use these things? Do you know someone that used this? Would you email someone? And the answer was constantly no. But she basically had gotten all this stuff from her husband who had passed away, and she felt the pressure that she needed. And we ended up ending that session with, you don't need any of these things. Cancel your internet because you don't use it. You're never going to use it, just from discussing you, because sometimes that's the answer, especially when in a public library working with elderly patrons, the pressure to be online, to have that presence when maybe they don't, and that's okay. That was a surprising thing that I've always reiterated with my staff of, that might be the answer, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's an okay answer, because if you don't actually have a need or a work or a personal need, then if you don't want it, don't have it.
Thanks, Chris. Carl, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's I would call it surprising. I would say that it underlined the, trying to find the right word, kind of the gap between people that use technology and people that don't. And when schools went remote, that happened literally overnight. And that was an immediate need. And there were a lot of families on all ends of the spectrum that struggled with that. But the struggles were, I think, most pronounced at the lower end of the spectrum. And so, I mean, things like hotspots, digital access, but also just being able to have young adults and have families be able to do things like basic things in their home to help students. That all became more pronounced than it otherwise might have been. And that's not exactly what we used. This program was designed for what Chris described, things in the library and helping people through kind of navigating the digital world. But as it turned out, this kind of came upon us at a time when the digital divide became more evident than it ever has. And so I think that underlines for me the need to throw some more resources at that as we go forward.
Thanks, Carl. Beth or Stacy, anything to add to that?
With Nate's focus on digital citizenship and digital footprint, I think some of the things that I really appreciated about his approach was, instead of just making it a big list of don't do this, this is dangerous, don't do that. He took almost more of like a public health approach to it, with harm reduction rather than don't do all of these bad things. So at one point he was like, we all know that you're going to eventually click on the ad or look at the site that you maybe shouldn't have. Here's the things you need to know to be able to gracefully back out of that without causing any trouble. And also his focus on your digital footprint and your digital self, and how it's okay to have multiple versions and personas out there, and how most kids do, and that's okay, so that they can have their professional profile or their family profile, and then the one with their friends where they do other things, and really putting all that out there is, this is just a way to cope and how we get through. And there's not really right and wrong answers. There's just trying to keep things as moving smoothly with as few accidents as possible. One of the exercises he did that I really liked was he had the whole class Google their own name. And a lot of people had not done that. And it was really interesting for people to just see, the light bulbs go off on, oh, all of these things I've done have been collected and can be found in just a matter of seconds. And it was really interesting to watch that and see, like all those things just click into place for people.
Yeah, I highly recommend everyone go Google your name, because the amount of information out there, you might be surprised, because it's like, yeah, when he had us do that, it's like, oh yeah, that is the address I lived at 10 years ago, and my old phone number, and where I worked, and my parents, and all this information. So it was really interesting to do. So I recommend everybody do that at some point.
Stacy, I've got a quick follow-up question. When he did those exercises with the students, and when he was interacting with the school district, did he ever do a program for parents?
One of the sessions that he did here at Booth Library was just digital parenting and digital parenting styles. So yeah, there's a very nice recording on that. I encourage people to go look at it. One of the exercises he did with the younger children, if I am remembering this correctly, I think he took in a bunch of construction paper and markers and stuff, and had them, just draw all kinds of stuff on the paper, and then told them to erase it so that people couldn't tell what they'd done. And of course, you can't erase marker. And he's like, well, this is kind of how it works online. If you do these things online, they're there forever and you can't get rid of them. So he was really good at adjusting his teaching for the different audience and helping them understand. But yes, there is one just for parents. And then he also had those exercises for younger children to help them understand privacy and digital footprints.
That's great. And just listening to Stacy and all our panelists this morning, what we'll do is we'll collect the links to the LibGuides and direct you to the recordings, and we can send that as a follow-up to those who are participating this morning. Beth, is there anything you'd like to add?
The surprising thing for me was just the change in the curriculum to meet the needs of the public libraries. I'm not a librarian. I work in the office here at Booth Library, so I'm not the ones usually out working with the patrons. And so, well, as I said earlier, when we started deciding, we had kind of made a list of topics that we thought we would cover when we first contacted our public library and community college partners, and to say, what do you think about these? And then the answers that they were coming back with, as several of us have already noted, is we really needed to scale it back to make something a lot more basic. And that was surprising for me, because, I'm not at the public library and I hadn't seen, I knew even here, we have a lot of community patrons come in that needed help with very basic computer skills and filling out online forms and things like that. But so the surprising thing to me was adjusting our curriculum, but Nate did an awesome job, I think, of meeting the needs of what each location specifically asked for. I mean, he couldn't tailor every workshop specifically for each location, but he took all the input that he got and did his best to zero in on what topics seemed to be the most important. as Chris noted, and you'll see this in the LibGuide if you click on the link, the core curriculum he called digital citizenship. So he gave that at some level to every group that he spoke to. And then the other ones were sort of more specific, you know, the Google Suite or internet security and things like that. So the digital citizenship kind of gathers what we consider to be the most important overall things that people needed to know related to digital literacy. And then, so that I think that was the first training session that he gave. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. And then after that, he sort of branched out into some of these other topics that our partners had requested.
That's great. I've got one more question for you, and then I'd like to open it up to questions. We have a couple in the chat, but I guess the final question I'd like you to comment on is about what the experience of partnering meant in this project. And anybody can jump in, please.
Well, as Zach noted, we do try to partner with our community when we can. So it's not the first time we worked with Chris in the Charleston Public Library, and it's not the first time we worked with Mattoon Public Library. Lakeland College was already holding their GED classes here in our building a couple times a week, so they were a natural partner for us to get in touch with. But some of the others, we also communicated with the Effingham Public Library and the Elizabeth Titus Memorial Library in Sullivan, Illinois. Those were both fairly new partners. Sullivan completely new. We'd never worked with them before. Effingham, we had a little bit on exhibits, but so we were able to branch out a little bit. I'll let them respond, but we always like to create a network as much as we can to do community partnerships, especially for grant funded programs. And, you know, we did have some original partners who were included on the grant that dropped out early in the process. So that was disappointing, but, you know, they thought it sounded good. But then when we kind of followed up with them later, you know, from the time you submit the grant application to the time you find out you got the grant, several months had passed. You know, several things related to a pandemic had occurred, and some of them, you know, weren't able to participate in the end. We had 3 community colleges to start with, 3 community college libraries that were going to participate, and we ended up only with the Lakeland College GED program in the end. But that was okay. You know, we did what we could for our partners.
Thanks, Beth. Anybody else want to comment on partnership?
Well, I'll say, I mean, partnership is what makes things like this possible. I mean, obviously from like the grant standing, being able to pull together partners is the opportunity to get a bigger grant and do something bigger and better. But just the idea of partnering to bring different viewpoints, to bring different ideas. I mean, we see it every day with Heartland. I mean, all of us together, we're stronger and we're better together than we are apart. And programs like this are the same thing. So, you know, like Beth said, this is not the first time we've been lucky enough to partner with Booth, and I surely hope it's not the last. You know, it gives us the opportunity to work with others and get new perspectives, and have someone, maybe one partner can bring an expert into the conversation that kind of changes how you viewpoint it, and to be able to share your viewpoints and different patrons and different basis, as far as whether it's students or adults or elderly patrons with like the Academy of Lifelong Learning, to be able to take those perspectives, I think is what makes these kind of programs and these kind of opportunities as good as they are, because we're able to compile all of it into one kind of source and bring all those ideas together.
Thanks,
I would just say linking and leveraging resources, both within the library community and within our broader community, is a significant part of what's expected of me. And when you can do things that are actionable and that have kind of immediate, that you can deploy immediately, that makes it even better. And so these are the kinds of things that we regularly look for and welcome.
Thank you, Carl.
The 2 key things I think that helped make this really successful were the train the trainer model, because the problem with grants is always you have kind of this one shot with the money to get it done. and making this more about training everyone in the group so that they could go on and use that pass was key. The other thing I think that really was new, at least to me on this project, was our past collaborations have been more sharing information back and forth, using physical sites for exhibits, things where it's the core people that normally work at the library interacting. This project was different because we used the grant funds to bring in an outside expert that was able to devote a large amount of time to this project. So instead of trying to take a bunch of overstretched libraries and add one more thing to their plate, this was getting a group of people with common needs together and taking one thing off of all of their plates and putting it on a grant funded employee to then come back and bring that work back into the group. So that was the really interesting thing from my perspective, was we're actually taking a load off rather than putting more on through the partnership.
That was perfect, Stacy. Thank you so much. I really like the whole taking something off. That makes a lot of sense. We have a couple questions in the chat, and please, if anybody has any other questions, let me get through the 2 questions from Sandy West. And then if you want to put something in the chat or unmute your mic and put your hand up, we can handle it that way. So Sandy says, have any of your libraries had a patron come in to fill out an online application because they were instructed to go to their library to fill it out? Then to have the patron explain they have little understanding of computer and online forms. Would you ask them to set an appointment or provide that immediate need, especially considering the number of staff members working in their duties to complete?
In our case, when people walk through our door and take time out of their life to walk through our door, we do everything we can to help them right away. We don't ask them to come back. If we can't answer the question, or if we don't have the expertise, that's one thing, but we consider ourselves in the service business, and we help people as they come in.
As far as having those kind of situations happen, yeah, every day. We would help that patron immediately. I mean, help in a way that, we would guide them. We would not fill it out for them. That's one of the things that we take a stand here, that we're not going to fill out an application for you, but we'll sit there and show you where to click and where to type. And it might be a thing where, okay, fill out, the basics, fill out this page. I'm going to go back to my desk, call me over when you're ready at the next page, and we'll keep going with it. And then we would offer, like, hey, if you want to get a little more time, want to have a little more get a little more comfortable with the computer, we have this available where you can schedule one-on-one, and it's a more of an incentive, more of like, hey, if this is something you want to be better at, if you want to get more comfortable at, we can help you do that too. We'll help you get this application done today, and we can do more on top of that. We try for both, but we would never send. The only time we would send someone away in that kind of situations, if they walk in just as we're trying to lock the door. And it's like, oh, we open tomorrow at 10. Please come back. This is my name. I'll sit down and help you. But we will absolutely try and help that patron that day, and then just offer, a one-on-one session as moving forward if they want to get more comfortable with that.
Well, the customer service attitudes from Charleston and Mattoon make me feel really happy. Sandy had one more question, and this is timely. Did any one of the trainings involve 2-factor authentication for access to library databases or other digital accounts? Anybody remember?
Yes. I know that we discussed various security things, as well as like making passwords and making security questions and two-factor authentication, because that's we see a lot of people make passwords. If you help someone make like a Gmail, they want to use like a mother's maiden name, but my mother's maiden name is very prominently displayed on her Facebook page, so that's probably not a good thing to add. So basic security things like that were part of the training.
Thanks, Chris. Any more questions for any of our panelists? And Sandy West said thank you to all of you for the customer service advice. If we don't have any more questions, is there anything else any of our panelists would like to share?
I'll go ahead and put in a plug for my current project. As part of this work that we did on digital literacy, digital citizenship, we had initially talked about doing something with digital health literacy, and spoke to Nate about that. And that was not an area that he felt terribly comfortable working in. That's not where his training was. But we were able to secure an award from the network of the National Library of Medicine, and hired 2 staff people that have been working here for the last several months to build a similar type of curriculum on digital health literacy, where they again went out and spoke with all of the partner libraries in the area to try to build up a curriculum. We are just now at the very end of finishing up those videos. So hopefully soon I'll be able to share back the link to those materials so that people can view those recordings. And we have some really short little assessments that go with the recordings just to help us try to figure out if we covered what we needed to cover. Since for this project, when we had initially scheduled to do our trainings was right during that really bad COVID flare there in January and February. This one's going to be all online. So it's little 5 to 10 minute YouTube videos on fairly small topics. So you can just kind of watch the pieces that you need. Or if your staff wants to sit down and watch them all together, that's great. But we were trying to get this to where it was working better with the staffing situation we had during the time that we had planned to do the training. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be sharing that with someone at Illinois Heartland once we get it wrapped up so that you all can take a look.
Thank you, Stacy. And thanks to all of you for sharing your experiences and your learning this morning. We really appreciate your time and your being here. We're going to shift on our agenda to kind of our update from the system, and we'd love to have you stick around. So please do whatever's comfortable for you, but know how much we appreciate you being here this morning. And that being said, I see a familiar face on the bottom of my screen, and that's our Executive Director, Leslie Bednar, who's going to talk about what's going on in administration at the system.
Forgot to unmute. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much to our colleagues and friends, Beth, Carl, Chris, Stacy, and Zach for their presentation this morning. It was really helpful to learn more on the backside a little bit about how their project came together and how they are continuing to collaborate with each other. That's a model that's, I believe, easily replicable, maybe not with that exact grant, but with other projects. So, and I know we have other members that are doing the same thing. So it's so good to hear that. Ellen asked me today to talk a little bit about where we are right now. So every April, our board sees our draft operational plan and our draft budgets. So those are the 2 primary components of our system area and per capita grant application. That application is due to the state library at the end of May. So our board has been discussing in committee, and then we'll be discussing at their meeting on Tuesday night, the operational plan and the budget. And then right after that board meeting, we open all of that up for member comments. So we would love to get your feedback on those documents and see how you see your library fitting into the projects that we have planned for FY 2023. Or if you don't see your library fitting in that plan, please tell us, because we can't fix what we don't know is broken. So that's all really important, that feedback from members to us. Then our board and committees review the feedback and their individual committee perspectives in May, and the board approves both at the May meeting, and then it goes to the state library for the final approval. To back that up a little, I wanted to share a little bit about how we get there. We start in January by looking at, traditionally we start in January by looking at our current fiscal year's operational plan. Have we met these goals? Is this something we can still achieve in the next 6 months of the fiscal year? Or is this something that continues on into the next fiscal year, or just is placed on hold and put in the next fiscal year. That's really helpful. It informs us in terms of what our individual department goals are for the last half of the fiscal year. When there's lots going on, it's good to have have it fresh in our minds where we're at and what we have determined in each department we can still achieve in that fiscal year. Something that we did this year different was to expand that developmental time for that project. So, and these are things that you will see in the operational plan when it's made available for member comment next Wednesday. It should be up next Wednesday. We looked internally and worked across departments with staff who aren't necessarily in traditional leadership roles. They're leaders in their departments. They're leaders in the eyes of our members. However, they may not be a leader as in managers, not in their job title, or supervisor may not be in their job description. So but those are staff who are working with our members and who have, in many cases, have lots of experience working in member libraries prior to coming to work with us. So they bring that to the table. And so I called this out of the box thinking, not maybe the most clever title of a process, but it is more of an internal strategic planning process, and not all of our organization or our staff were involved. But we do have a really great cross-section of staff. And so we worked with folks who were very creative at the beginning and just threw out everything that in terms of services that they've seen in the past work, or how a service we currently do might be tweaked to better serve members in the future. And then all of those ideas went to a group of staff who are really great at planning. You probably have people in your organizations who are just wonderful planners. You can give them any problem and they'll find you the steps A through Z to get to the end, and it's a better outcome than what maybe you might have put together on your own. So I'm drawing on the creative sides of our staff, and also on the we can really see down the road and see what steps need to be put in place to make this project work better. So we developed several projects that we are either going to debut in FY 2023 or we are going to develop further. So here's a clue: when we say that it's something we're going to develop further, it means that we don't have the resources, the financial resources, to make that project happen, but we still are really committed to it. So that's where we are right now. Ellen, was there anything else you wanted me to cover?
I think that was absolutely perfect, Leslie.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
And on the screen is our share director, Cassandra Thompson, who can give you an update from that end.
Hi, thank you so much, Ellen. So the big news for SHARE is we sent our SHARE annual agreements, and so we did send those electronically. So if you didn't receive yours, or if you have any questions about those, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be happy to help you with that. Another exciting announcement is we have opened up registration for the SHARE McNaughton program, which that is a program for book leasing through the McNaughton Department of Broad Art. And so you might be wondering, who is that program actually for? That program is going to be for any library that wants to reallocate resources, so staff are not dedicating time to getting the newest bestsellers. They come fully processed, they come fully cataloged. They're going to come from IHLS Edwardsville Hub through delivery to you. And so it takes a lot of the work out of that day-to-day, specifically for those bestsellers. It's a scalable program, so you could order up to 5 books a month or 10 books a month, depending on what size of library, or you could do a mix and match or a variation. So if you're a larger library and you'd like to get 3 copies of a lot of the bestsellers, you can do that with 3 different packages. And so it is a really great scalable program. This is not something that McNaughton would offer for this type of sizing for the smaller libraries. I know we have a couple names I'm seeing of libraries that have already signed up that had actually reached out to McNaughton, and they are able to get a better deal for a smaller package through the SHARE program. And so it's really exciting. It's something that's never been done before. And we really think that it's going to be very valuable for our members who, again, either want the to reallocate resource, that piece of collection management taken care of, or for libraries that they want to reduce their hold time. So they want a couple extra copies of that latest New and Yale Steel so that that can go out to their patrons. It will be 60 days where it would be local only, then it'll roll out to everyone. We're really hoping that if enough libraries start to participate, we're going to see those hold times for everybody go down. So we're really excited about that program. And I think it's a really good fit for a lot of our libraries. If you have any questions about that, there's information on the SHARE website. So please feel free to take a look, and there's a link to sign up there. We also are offering a new tool, a collection analysis tool for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if that's a project that you're looking at for your strategic plan in the next year, we are doing a group purchase for that through SHARE. So if you have any questions, again, that is also on the SHARE website. And so we also, of course, Leslie had mentioned the strategic planning, the budget process. And so we are also doing that today. We'll have a budget review meeting with the SHARE Executive Council at 2 o'clock. Tomorrow, we have a SHARE Bibliographic Cataloging and Standards Committee at 10 a.m. So please feel free to join us if you'd like. And does anybody have any questions for me? Thanks, Ellen.
You're most welcome. The next piece we have, okay, we don't have anything from communications. So Susan, I'll turn it over to you and you can talk about operations if you don't mind.
Sure thing. That's great. In operations, which is delivery and buildings, we have been working with Greg Pronovitz, who is of Pronovitz Consulting. He is the consultant that we chose to help us write an RFI. An RFI is a request for information. This is just that gathering stage to help us determine whether or not we would move to an RFP, request for proposal. If is it product, oh darn P words. It would be that we would potentially get a automatic material handler, an AMH. It's also called a sorting machine, an automatic sorting machine. Yes, getting an automatic sorting machine would help with costs for IHLS, but the bigger benefit is for those libraries who are members of SHARE. It would be able to, we would have tracking. We would have the ability for the larger libraries to have a tub of holds, a tub of returns, and you just scan the outside label to automatically check in items. It would also provide not totally error-proof sorting, but it would increase the odds that you would not get somebody else's items in your tubs because the human touch is reduced. This RFI will be released this week. If you're interested in just seeing what it is, it's really set up for vendors. It'll be over on our website under items most requested. So if you're interested in just seeing how this process works, it might be something that you need for your library when you're doing an RFP. You really want to just gather that information in order to make a better decision about if it's worth the time, effort to go for the RFP. Feel free to look at this. We're very transparent about this whole process. I'm really excited about it. So if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to me or ask me a question. We will, once we determine whether or not we're going to move forward with an RFP, we will be evaluating what does that cost for libraries. I know for those of you who have been here for years, we started this conversation 4 years ago, and we don't take this lightly. You know, we just keep thinking about this because of the jump in technology is there. The minds who believe that this is that next step in delivery and giving libraries really another benefit, and a benefit because you guys are one consortia for the most part. Most of our libraries are in the SHARE consortia. We should take advantage of that. We should take advantage of this time in the world even to go ahead and do that. I see it more as a foundation building too, as well as we're going to have savings for libraries. It will be labelless delivery. You won't be printing out those receipt labels, which are fabulous, but we'll just be scanning barcodes. And yes, there are things that the library is going to have to do. For those of you who already have your codes or your barcodes on the outside of the item, great. You're way up in getting things ready for an automatic material handler or a sorting machine. For those of you who do not, we've been encouraging since 4 years ago, start putting it on the outside. And truly, we just need it on the outside. If you like upper right, great. You like lower left, fine. I just need it on the outside. It can even be on the back so that the machine can read this and get the information. And I understand that there will be a cost to that. And we'll be looking into that and seeing what other things, maybe a grant or something. We're going to try to be, we're very conscious. We all are strapped for money, you know? And so we are going to be conscious and be thoughtful in looking at this potentially. So that's the RFI update. Another thing I wanted to say about the RFI update, IHLS got a huge compliment in our data, and that's cross departments keeping this data. You know, we've kept data forever, in my opinion, and it's finally truly being used. And in being used, it has been a learning experience for us on how to retrieve and what exactly are we retrieving. It's gotten a little too philosophical at times. However, this is across all departments. We all pulled together and worked together to get the data required. And we had that compliment that the person, Greg Pronovitz, has said that our organization should be commended for being able to have our data at our fingertips and being able to pull it so quickly. Because that's a huge piece. If you don't have that data, we would still be collecting it right now. And gosh, you know, I'll be retired before we ever get the RFI done. But now look, we've got one coming out at the end of this week. So yay. Okay, my next thing is the dog bags, the dogs, the delivery on the go service. Same route, same day. That is actually coming out next week. Start watching for those orange bags. We have had this service for years. We're just highlighting it and putting it in a different way that we're hoping it will be used even more. Currently, we're over 1,000 items a month are sorted, you know, put out for a library after another library on that route. So the two things that this does by doing that piece where we're going to ask you, it's one library per bag. It can be probably 4 or 5 items, up to 4 or 5 items in that bag. You'll see once you get the bags, you know, you don't want to stretch them and then they fall apart. And they are reusable, recyclable. So what happens is that if a library after you on your route requests an item, you could put that in that dog bag. Or if a library after calls you and starts selectively borrowing from your library because it's ahead of them on the route, you can use this service to get same route, same day. The two things that does is, one, it gets the item in your patron's hands even quicker. 2, it also saves time for IHLS staff and saves work. As we all know, all of us are pulled, even this, you know, and including the system, to doing the best that we can with the funding that we have, correct? So this will allow that item not to have to be touched again back at the hub. It doesn't have to come all the way back to the hub to be touched, sorted out, put into a bin, put back out that next day. So those are the two main great things about this service. We're excited. We will be keeping stats so that we can kind of see how well it does. I'm very hopeful that we don't exceed my expectations because this could be just so great, especially back to all libraries, all different sizes. So, and then of course the regular duties. Does anybody have questions for me now, or feel free to email me and I'll respond later. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. And I'm going to wrap it up with membership reports. I think we started certification maybe around 2014. So maybe this is our 8th year of doing it and we're all finished up. As in most years, we will lose some member libraries, and those will be presented at the board at the May or June meetings. But the happy news is we have some libraries interested in membership, and we're in the process of meeting with those libraries and doing site visits there and having them fill out applications for membership. So that's all good. Because this event today, the participants are mostly all public libraries. If any of you are brand new, remember that the applications for Directors U to be held in person in June at the Illinois State Library are available online. For those of you, I'm going to make a plug too for the Illinois Library Association's new network. If you're interested in some good continuing education, that's a really great resource to take advantage of. And you can access those at ILA's website, as well as one more trustee training available in May through ILA and their trustee forum. So those are things to bear in mind and think about taking advantage of. But as Susan talked about the AMH and how exciting that is and something new, I think the thing for membership that's most exciting right now is we're back to doing site visits. We're back to meeting with libraries one-on-one, and it just feels so good to do that. It truly does. Annie Yackel has a good track record of going to library board meetings, and she's been doing that pretty consistently. Certainly, certainly through the winter of this year, and you know, her dance card is pretty full most of the time about talking to boards as how they can work together more effectively to serve their community. And she's always happy to make an appointment with any library and do that. Our new school library membership coordinator, Leah Gregory, has, I think, very wisely determined that since she started in January and school will be out in May, that she'll use a lot of the spring to be on the road, to meet with libraries, to meet with as many school librarians as she can before they're gone for the summer, so that she can determine kind of a roadmap for our service to them during the upcoming school year. So, and I'm meeting with some people who are interested in system membership. So it's great to be out again. And it certainly feels like an integral part of system work. And while we're also going to networking meetings. So an integral part of system work is back on track. And that feels really, really good. So with that, I think we're done with the system round robin. Does anybody who's participating have anything they'd like to share or announce or ask questions of us? I think we have about 30 people joining us today. Okay, this means we're out a little early. So please, when this meeting is ended, go out and enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you in May. Thank you all for coming. Bye-bye.